It's Thursday, the 7th of March, 2024. Welcome to the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, 5 stories in 5 minutes. Let's get going. Story number 1's a big one. The economy expanded by just 0.2% in the final 3 months of last year, demonstrating that the run of higher interest rates is it's sharply slowing the economy, especially, it seems, household spending.
Yeah, the outcome was low, but a bit of a relief because it wasn't negative. The annual rate of growth last year was 1.5%. That's the lowest growth rate since 2000 if you ignore the pandemic years. A normal growth rate's more like 2.5% to 3%. GDP per capita, so growth per person, fell for the third consecutive quarter, with the population growing by 2.4%. It means as individuals, we're suffering a recession. Now, the weak spot in the national accounts released by the Bureau of Statistics, definitely household consumption. They're upping spending on stuff like electricity, rent, food and health, essential stuff, winding it back on hotels, cafes, cigarettes, cars, clothing, footwear, that type of thing. Government spending's pretty strong, has been for a while post-COVID. Private business investments good, residential investments not so good. Exports are helping. Labour productivity's higher, that's good news, although labour costs remain elevated and real household disposable income jumped, as did the savings ratio.
Sean, financial markets often kind of respond to big releases of data like this. What was the market reaction yesterday to the GDP figures?
Okay, so the ASX didn't do too much, but the bond market moved to fully price in a first rate cut in September. That's good news. And then another one before Christmas. Basically, investors are increasingly confident that the slowdown in the economy will be enough to tip the Reserve Bank's hand. Yesterday, Federal Treasurer Jim Chalmers said the upcoming May budget will have to address the sluggish economy. He said even weak growth, as demonstrated yesterday, is welcome growth.
Okay, on to story number 2. The federal government is under pressure from the automotive industry and major manufacturers like Thailand to alter recently released new vehicle efficiency standards.
The industry has warned that smaller car brands may, like Holden, quit the Australian market because the economics of selling vehicles doesn't stack up under the emissions proposals. The new standards impose an annual threshold for emissions for all cars sold by a single manufacturer. The Thai Prime Minister urged Anthony Albanese to slow the rollout. Now, Thailand manufactures about 200,000 cars, mostly utes and SUVs, for the Aussie market each year, including the top-selling Ford Ranger. Climate and Energy Minister Chris Bowen yesterday said if there are sensible suggestions in keeping with the approach the government is taking, then they will be considered.
On to number 3. Now, online retail giant Amazon has pushed through the $3 billion sales barrier in Australia, driven by a broad lift in demand for its retail and media services last year.
Subscription service Amazon Prime led the way, and the group is now estimated to account for about 10% of all money spent on online shopping in Australia, according to the newspaper The Australian. Its sales here have almost doubled in the past few years as it takes on established players such as Woolies and Coles, Kmart, Big W, as well as some of the pure play online guys, eBay, Kogan.com, Temple & Webster. Amazon's Australian accounts show its own online store grew revenue by 21% last year. The reseller store was up by 79%. Amazon is easily outpacing the growth of the local online retail sector and is pinching market share from both local and international retailers.
All right, number 4, Donald Trump has almost swept the Republican primaries over the past 36 hours. He is set to be the party's candidate for the general election later in the year.
And guess what, Michael? His speech at the end of Super Tuesday said he wants to make America great again. Think I've heard that one.
Well, if it worked once, why not bust it out again?
Exactly. He wants to strengthen the economy and crack down on migration. The only state he lost yesterday to challenger Nikki Haley was Vermont. After his victory, Mr. Trump said the US had lost credibility on the world stage and his personality had kept the country out of conflict when he was president. He said the US is known as a joke and described it as a third world country because of its migration policy and elections. In the Democratic primaries, Joe Biden swept to victory everywhere except in American Samoa, where an unknown candidate, Jason Palmer, won 51 of 91 votes. Not many there. Taylor Swift made her first foray into the campaign, telling her 282 million followers on Instagram to vote in the primaries, though she didn't say who for. Anyway, battle lines have been drawn. Biden v Trump. At the moment, it's neck and neck in the polls.
Last story number 5, and this one is pretty remarkable, Sean. One of the world's most iconic photos of a sailor kissing a woman in New York's Times Square on VJ Day at the end of World War II has been caught up in a fight over consent.
Yes, the sailor is holding the stranger who's leaning backwards. It appeared in Life magazine, one of the world's best-known snaps. But the US Veteran Affairs requested the photo's removal from all its health facilities because it depicts a non-consensual act and is inconsistent with the department's sexual harassment policy. Eventually, the boss of Veteran Affairs stepped in and said the photo wasn't banned. Now, it was taken on August 14, 1945, known as VJ Day, the day Japan surrendered to the United States, as people spilled into the New York City streets from restaurants, bars and movie theatres celebrating the news. George Mendonça spotted Greta Friedman, spun her around and planted on a kiss. The two had never met, according to AP. Friedman died in 2016, aged 92. Mendonça died in 2019 at age 95. Just a beautiful photo.
All right, there we go. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Thursday, the 7th of March, 2024. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. If 5 minutes isn't enough, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed Business News wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.